Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. It's T1D Tuesday, where we talk with somebody who has a connection to type 1 diabetes and what their experiences is like with type 1 diabetes. I am so excited to introduce you all to Lisa Katzenberger. She is the author of It Belongs to the World, which is a book about Frederick Banting and the discovery of insulin. Really wonderful children's book. Really recommend checking it out. And she also has a son who lives with type 1 diabetes as well. Talk to her about her book and what it's like being a parent to a child with type 1 diabetes. Lisa, I know I kind of said a mouthful here, but go ahead and pass it over to you.
Okay.
Go ahead and introduce yourself to our chat here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
I am a children's book author, and I have a few books out, and my most recent one, and the one with the connection to type 1 diabetes, is the book you just showed, It Belongs to the World. A biography. It's a picture book biography of Frederick Banting, about not only his life, but the discovery of insulin and the work he did to discover that. And my son, Ryan, is 14 years old. He has type 1 diabetes. He was diagnosed when he was 7 in the summer between first and second grade. He has a twin sister, Sydney, who does not have type 1 diabetes. And our family, my husband, Mike, our family lives near Chicago.
Yeah, and me too. So that was like quite a nice coincidence. Like, oh, hey, you actually live like a stone's throw away from me. What a small world. And Lisa's actually super involved, I believe, with the Illinois Breakthrough T1D chapter. So her and her family have been very involved with it, and really refreshing to see. Just your enthusiasm for, supporting our program and folk with type 1 diabetics is obviously it's a very personal thing for you having a child with type 1 diabetes, but I have to just very admirable the amount of work you've put in to help make life better for those of us who have type 1 diabetes.
Oh, thank you.
Your son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when he was 7 years old. Do you remember kind of how his diagnosis went, and could you share with us the journey from him, maybe showing symptoms to getting that actual diagnosis?
Yeah, definitely. I remember it all.
I bet.
Yeah. So he was diagnosed in June, and it was after his first grade. And he showed the classic symptoms, which I knew nothing about, absolutely nothing about. He was going pee a bunch. He was super thirsty. He had been losing weight, and we actually thought, oh, maybe he's going through a growth spurt and he's kind of stretching out and losing his baby fat and that kind of stuff. And
which is very normal at 7 years old. That's
right, yeah. Yeah. And the other symptom looking back was that a couple days he'd just like be sick but not have any symptoms. He's just like, I just don't feel good. And I remember at school one day his teacher coming out at dismissal and saying, Ryan wasn't feeling good the past hour. I just told him to put his head on his desk, and just kind of rest, And he was like, Mom, I think I fell asleep in school.
Oh, no.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So finally, what the kicker for us was to know that we needed to go see a doctor. He was at a Cub Scout event with his dad, Mike, and they were under a pavilion after their event, and it was raining outside like heavily, and they were having cupcakes, and Ryan got thirsty. He's like, I want some water. I don't know what the story was. I wasn't there. For some reason, they didn't have water for the kids or something. And Ryan was like, I am so desperately thirsty. He didn't say it that way as a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
Like,
but he was,
yeah.
It was like
I want to go to
urgent.
that water fountain over there by the other building.
Oh, wow.
Rain to get a drink of water because I'm getting chills thinking about it.
Oh.
Because he was so thirsty.
Yeah.
And then Mike went to Dr. Google on his phone before he came home, and he said he searched hungry, thirsty, skinny boy. And it came up with type 1 diabetes.
Oh, wow.
And that was a Sunday afternoon. And we brought him into the doctor Monday morning. I was kind of assuming this is what it would be. His blood sugar was somewhere in the 400s. And his doctor said, this is a big deal, Ryan. You have diabetes. They sent us to the hospital, to the ER, to get fluids and insulin. And Ryan's a real sensitive kid. And when I knew that he had to get an IV, I was like,
oh,
you're not getting an IV in that kid.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to
happen. Oh, no.
And we get to the hospital, Edward Hospital in the western suburbs of Chicago. And the staff was great. They put on a movie for him. They distracted him. They got an IV in him. And looking back, Ryan said, when he remembers when he got that IV, he said he just felt instantly better.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh.
And he was in the hospital for 2 nights, maybe 3 nights.
Okay.
And they taught us everything, and we watched these like really outdated videos that on the TV screen to educate you. Oh my gosh. I mean, the information was accurate.
Yeah.
Like, the actors they can show them.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting that you talk about how, you didn't know you weren't aware of the signs for this. And that's like that's part of with Breakthrough T1D, part of our program is of course funding research, trying to find cures for type 1 diabetes. But another big portion is that educating folk about, what are the signs to look for, because it is such a big thing. The earlier you detect it, the much easier of a transition you're going to have. And
alarm.
Oh, I was also going to ask about that, if he was on
I thought I had snoozed, but I didn't.
CGM or not.
Familiar sound to everyone, right?
Yes. Yep. It's so funny. We've had before on the live stream, people have their alarms go off, and someone in chat's like, "Oh, I thought that was my alarm."
Right. We all know the sound.
Yes. I also find it the fact that when he started receiving the IV in the hospital, that instantly thought of in your book where Frederick Banting finally discovers insulin, and there's a little bit of the story background here. There was a child who was suffering from type 1 diabetes and was very, very ill because it was untreated. And the story is, as soon as he received that first injection of insulin, instantly felt better. Now that was a child who was like almost comatose.
He was drifting in and out of a coma. He was losing his hair. He was weak. They actually gave him, they gave Leonard an injection, I want to say a week earlier, and it didn't work. So they kept refining the chemicals and the compound and everything. And then a week later, they gave him another dose, and that was the one that they were like, okay, we can say for sure that we've got the right formula to make people better. And yeah. I was talking to Lisa before starting this stream, before we went live, about how reading her book really, it literally brought me to tears. And I don't know, maybe some of our viewers here can relate as adults with type 1 diabetes, that representation is so important, and getting to see, a children's book that focuses around
the scientist who discovered insulin and his journey and mission to discover a way to, keep type 1 diabetics alive after having, I believe, a friend passed away.
Mhm.
Was really impactful. And then, of course, the message of insulin belongs to the world. It shouldn't be sold for more than $1, I believe was what it was in the book.
Yes, they
And
sold the patent for $1.
yeah,
Yes.
and that it's not here to make money, but it's a life-saving medication for folk like myself and many of our viewers who depend on it.
Yeah.
So it was really was impactful reading that and seeing that, and I do appreciate you. I'm sure your son was probably a big inspiration. But what inspired you to write specifically about Frederick Banting and his discovery of insulin?
All right. So I started writing this book 2019, December 2019. I wrote the first draft, and I had sold a couple picture books already, and I'm constantly writing stories and trying to get new ideas and everything out there. And at that time, picture book biographies in the market started becoming very, very popular. It was a new format that they were more less textbooky and more narrative and a story arc, and it really became a very popular thing in the market. And I wanted to challenge myself, and I said, all right, I'm going to try to do this. I want to write a picture book biography. And I'm like, who would I write about? And I was like, I want it to be someone who I would spend hours and hours reading and researching about, months and months and years.
Yeah, that's
right. Something I have a personal connection to. And I had been thinking about it for a few months, and I had known about Frederick through Breakthrough T1D and doing research and scouring the website and reading everything I could about it. I had known about him and his team and the discovery they made and the fact that he gave the patent away for $1. And I forget the exact moment, but at some time I was like, oh, this is the guy. This is the subject I'm gonna use for this next kind of challenge in my writing career. And so I started the book in December of 2019, and then it got published in October of 2024. So from idea to book coming out, 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And part of that was research, part was writing, part was illustration. Janina Godin, who's a type 1 diabetic herself, people might know her online as Miss Diabetes. She's an illustration comic artist. She did the illustration, so that takes time, and then printing and getting it out. So 4 years.
Wow. And that, that makes sense after reading your book. And it's funny because I was like, I don't remember children's books being like this. Where like it really does dive deep into his journey and his childhood. It's hard to see here probably on my video, but the details in here are a lot deeper than what I think I would expect from like what I remember from children's books. And I'm not sure if that's maybe the way that we have progressed with children's books.
Yeah, I think so. And I wanted to, I'm doing school visits about this book later this week. So present children in schools. And so I was putting a presentation together, and I talked about, in part of it, I wanted to talk about the things I knew about Frederick that didn't make it into the book. That he was an artist, the fact that he did so many paintings, and his later life after the discovery and going back into the army and all that kind of stuff. So it's hard to know what part of the story to tell for kids to make it interesting to them.
Yeah.
And I got feedback from my editor who acquired the book. the book is published by HarperCollins, and she has type 1 diabetes herself. So when she saw the manuscript, she was like, I've been looking for a book like this. And she had wanted me to bring in some of the child-centric things about Frederick, like what was he like as a kid, and what did he enjoy doing, and so I kind of backed up and started the story from his childhood to give that kind of kid-to-kid connection.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That as a kid, you don't maybe necessarily want to just hear about this adult scientist, but
right,
it's good to have that, like, oh yeah, he was a kid too, and he liked, that connection there is very important. I enjoyed, though, even as an adult, like getting to learn more about Frederick Banting, because this is a man that is very important to my life too at the end of the day, that I have to thanks for me being able to still be here today as a kid diagnosed so young. So it is very, very special to have this and read this. Was part of this was that you were interested in writing a biography, you said?
Yes.
Did you have any other, maybe like post this book, interest in exploring other T1D topics as a children's book, or is this this is what you wanted to do and then moving on to other topics?
Right. So this is the only nonfiction book that I've written. It might be the only nonfiction book I ever write, because it was so very hard, but it was something I was very passionate about. And people have kind of asked me that question in times too. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to write a fiction story about a person with type 1 diabetes, because that's not my experience. And I think that should come from a person who has type 1 diabetes themselves. So I felt comfortable writing about Frederick and his life and reporting on his life. But I'll leave how it feels to live with type 1 diabetes to folks who have it themselves.
Yeah. And I think that's
the best, richest story.
Fair. Yeah. And that's kind of like that's why we do T1D Tuesday, is everyone has very different experiences with T1D. It all affect, there's so, I think T1D is a very particular disease where, depending on your everyday life and factors like how active are you, what is your diet like, how stressed are you sick? Right. Yeah. Like there's so many things that
hormones, we're starting to experience that.
That I remember correctly. I think when I went through puberty, it was like there was a lot of dealing with high blood sugar.
Yes.
Now that you say that, there's something where you are in your life. Like it is a very personal disease, and I think that's why I love this series though, here, is being able to talk to different folk about their experiences with it. And you have a unique experience being a mom to a child with type 1 diabetes. How do you manage balancing, your son's type 1 diabetes and everything else in life? How do you prioritize?
So for me, it's always family first. That's the most important thing to me, is my family. So when the kids got into full day kindergarten, so I've been a stay-at-home mom. I chose to stay home with the kids. I've always wanted to do that. I love the time I spent with them when they were little. And when they started going to full day kindergarten, I had more time on my hands. I've always been a writer. I've always written books, short stories, but I didn't get anything published until I started writing for kids, which is what I did after I had Sydney and Ryan in 2010. So I would take them to story times at the library and learn about picture books and how the market is different today. And I was like, oh, I want to write for kids. So I was able to kind of make a model of get up in the morning, get everyone ready for school, get everyone out the door, Then I have my time to write while they're in school. And then when they come home, I'm, especially now that they're older, I'm chaperone mom and chauffeur mom, excuse me.
Yes. Yep.
This one here and that one there, and picking up and all that sorts of stuff, and helping with homework, and getting dinner ready for everybody, getting snacks, managing blood sugar. So I have this, I'm very lucky that I'm able to have this kind of pocket of time every day that I can work on stuff for myself.
Yes.
But while still managing diabetes, like his loop is, right here. He's a little high in school. And the kids are the most important thing to me. So they will trump anything that I have to do for my writing career. And I'm feeling like I'm in a good spot now, but it took a long time to figure it out. Like when Ryan was diagnosed, it just shook everything up.
It's a life-changing diagnosis to have type 1 diabetes. It literally, all of a sudden you have this thing you have to manage 24/7. There's no breaks.
Right. And it's for a child who is not in front of me all day. When he's at school, you have to rely, and we've been very lucky. We have had wonderful support from our local school system.
That's so good.
And we've developed a very close relationship with his current nurse, who we're going to leave this because he's
going to high school. Now that's a whole nother transition.
Right. And at high school, our high school does not follow diabetics. So our nurse has always had his numbers, has always followed him. If he goes a little low, she doesn't notice, they text him, have some gummy bears, have a snack. If he needs to push in some more insulin, they have him do that. But when he goes to high school next year, their focus there is to get them independent.
Yes. So
Mike and I will always be following on our phones, but he's getting more aware of his high schools, and he can correct on his own, which he didn't have when he was very little. He just didn't. He was hypo unaware.
Oh, scary. That's scary. Yeah, I've always said I feel like I'm very lucky. I really feel my lows and my highs, and I know that's not the norm. So that's, which is wonderful that we have technology today, though, like constant glucose monitors, because you don't have to feel it if an alarm's going off in your pocket, which is very. So he has the constant glucose monitor. Does he have a phone to monitor that himself at this point as well?
Yeah. So his setup is he's on the Dexcom 7, and he's on Omnipod for his pump. And then the other component is that we do DIY looping, and this is where my husband Mike could explain things much better than me. But what that allows us to do is have more control over the automation of giving him auto boluses if he's a little high, and there's a lot more flexibility in the settings. So we got him a phone when he was in 3rd or 4th grade, I think, when we felt he was old enough to wear it in his spy belt. He wears a spy belt and just keeps it kind of around his waist in the back. When we felt he was old enough to be able to text with the nurse and for her to be able to text that. So that's the method of how they interact with him at school, excuse me. They'll text him and say, have some gummy bears, have some glucose tabs, whatever his current thing is. And then he had, we set it up so he had to write back and say, okay, so that we knew that he saw the message and he was responding. And we had instilled in him that it's not a phone, it's a medical device. So there were no games, there were no texting anybody else but mom, dad, and the nurse. And now he's 14, and of course, he has freedom to text his friends and all that kind of stuff. His gaming, he does other places. He doesn't really do a lot of games on his phone, but he's been very responsible with it. And so we've been very lucky to be able to communicate with him and trust him.
That's good. That's wonderful, especially going into this. You're now kind of at that pivot point where he's really got to start gaining more of his independence with this and, you know, trying to manage on his own. So it's good. It sounds like he's at least like, we're taking the steps there. I'm sure as a parent, it's scary regardless.
So scary. I've gotten much less scared of the disease than I was when he was first diagnosed. And very scared.
Yeah.
Very scared of lows, of what could happen. And it's taken me time to get to the point where I'm like, okay, he's gonna be all right.
Yes.
Like, I don't have to worry about diabetes every day. And I was like intensely worried about it. Now I'm just like regular. And it's always but I think that's very normal, you know, like you do know at the end of the day, if it's something that's unchecked, that could be life-threatening, but we are so lucky again to live in an age where we have constant glucose monitors, these loop systems that just overall are a lot more automated in keeping our blood sugars controlled and letting folk who do live with type 1 diabetes live a lot more of a normal, healthier life. It still requires management 24/7. It is, I believe, we talk about this a lot too, where I think on average it's 180 decisions more that diabetics will make on a daily basis. Because there's just again, as we were talking, there's so many little factors that impact blood sugar levels and a lot of things you have to plan ahead for just in case. We actually went on spring break last week, we went downtown to the Adler Planetarium, and you know, we have his kit he keeps with him with his snacks, and I've got snacks for the car and gummy bears galore and everything. Glucagon. What I didn't bring was extra backup insulin. And his pod stopped working and he's going very high, and we're in the middle of the like astronomy show, you know, like watching stars and everything, and I'm just like, you know, do you feel okay? Like, yeah, I do. And I was like, do you want to go home? He said, no, I'll be okay. And so we kind of finished our tour and drove an hour home and gave him a syringe shot to get him down more quickly and put a new pod in. And by dinner time, he was adjusted. But those are things that you have to think about differently.
And also you have to be able to, you know, roll with in a situation like that. I think that's as stressful of a situation it is, I think that is like a good learning experience that, like, you know, sometimes it might not be perfect, but that's okay. And we have to have kind of that forgiveness for ourselves and give ourselves that grace that sometimes those things happen, but we will be okay and can continue moving on with our lives and enjoy the planetarium and, you know.
And it definitely took me a long time to get here. I think if he was 8 or 9, I was still very nervous. And again, with him not being as aware of his body, I probably would have, I don't know, but my guess is I would have been like, we're getting out of here and we're going home. I would have freaked out, as he says.
But I don't, and I'm sure I as a mom, I think that's a very understandable thing. I look back at, even you're talking about this. I was diagnosed at 8 years old, so very similar age to Ryan. And I look, as you're telling these stories, I'm thinking back of how my mom reacted during that, and it was very similar. The first few years, she was very scared to, you know, maybe not have me close by. She had a lot of sleepless nights where this was back before we had constant glucose monitors, where my mom was waking up every couple hours in the night to check my blood sugar manually because she just couldn't sleep. She was terrified. And I look back at that now as an adult. Like as a kid, it was like, the "Mom, you're freaking out," but
Right? Yeah.
feeling. But like now I look back at that as an adult and I'm like, I'm so glad my mom, that must have been really scary for her, and I really appreciate the, all the effort and such she did to make sure I was okay during this transitional time. And I think it does get easier with time and as we learn, again, everyone, we all have, I think our bodies react differently to so many factors that impact blood sugars, and just kind of taking that and learning. And Ryan's kind of at this point where he's now probably starting to more actively learn, what feels like if he's low or high and how to manage himself. And but we have so many great resources out there. And
we're very lucky. We have a lot of technology, and he's a good kid. He's a very responsible kid. So Mike and I put a lot of trust in him, and he has his moments just like any other teenager does, but overall, we can say he's on top of it at this point in his life.
And I know, we mentioned this earlier, you yourself are very involved with the Illinois chapter of Breakthrough T1D, but Ryan also has some interest in being involved in helping other kids with type 1 diabetes or folk with type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, so we've done the walk. I've not during the pandemic when it was different. But we've done the walk every year. I think it was the first year we did it. Ryan was a V1P because he raised more than $1,000.
Hey.
So cool. And he got like a prize pack in a raffle. He won the raffle too.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
Enchanted Castle, that like game place, they've got like skee ball and bumper cars, video games, and all. He won a package to that. He was so excited about it.
So
for
cool.
8-year-old, that was like, I have $100, just go crazy. So we've done that, and I've also volunteered at the community summits that they do once a year. We started attending those, and then I started volunteering. In the past couple years, they've had an author corner where they've invited a lot of several authors who have books about type 1 diabetes to come and have a little expo where we can talk about our books with participants, and
I love that.
If they're interested, and just kind of a little bit of spreading the word about our stories. And then the other thing Ryan has done, and this isn't through Breakthrough T1D, but it came through the connection, is there's a new Camp Type 1 that runs a camp at College DuPage for a week in the summer, a day camp. And Ryan is old enough to be a junior counselor.
Oh.
He never liked going to camp himself. I have never gotten him diabetes camp. He refuses to do it. And I was like, all right, it's your choice. I'm not going to push you. I know some people are like, send your kid there. They've got to do it. That's, it'll work for them. And maybe it would have helped, but it just didn't work for us.
And that's okay.
He realized he could be a counselor and help little kids. He was like, and so he did that last year and had a fantastic time. And
I think such a wonderful experience.
Yeah, I think it helped him learn how strong he was and how much he knew about managing himself.
Oh, yeah.
He can help other little kids, and he's like, oh, I'm not 7 anymore. I think it was really good for him.
Oh, yeah, that I could see that being just like a really, as we're talking about here, like him transitioning to high school and, his gaining more independence. That's such a phenomenal experience for him to have for that transition, and building up confidence and maybe even awareness too of things that he needs to be looking out for himself. And I love that's such a great experience. I know you mentioned too, so Ryan's not your only kid. You actually have twins.
Yes. He's a twin sister.
So Ryan and Sydney. How is it being a parent to not only a child who has type 1 diabetes, but then his twin sister doesn't have it. Is there any like, I know sometimes with siblings, there's like feelings, especially with something like type 1 diabetes, that maybe the other one's getting more attention or special treatment. How do you balance that as a mom?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Some of it is just kind of go with your gut and do what feels right in the moment. Sydney and Ryan get along very well. They're very good friends. I'm waiting for maybe the teenage years for them to, start clashing or something like that. Know what's ahead of us. I'm a little nervous because it's been too good so far. And I do, worry that she feels, like you said, too much attention to Ryan. And so we talk about it, just the other day, he was having a low and he was trying to eat all this food and I was trying to not let him overeat and, and he kind of got upset and I had to like drop what I was doing with her and focus on him directly for 15, 20 minutes. And so I talked with her about it later and I was like, how did that feel? And are you okay? And she's like, I just feel sad for him and I feel bad for him when he's low. And I'm like, are you sure you're all right? And she's like, yeah, I am. And so I'm hoping that just the act of checking in with her makes her feel like, I know what you're going through. I think I know what you're going through. You're seeing me sometimes have to shift my focus. Especially when he was younger, there were times when I'm like, Sydney, I have to sit with your brother. I can't go outside and play with you.
Yes.
Might be, that was definitely tough. But I think she understands enough to know there's sometimes there's just no choice. He as a child needs immediate attention. If she was in a situation, whatever it was for her, if she broke her leg or whatever, I, drop everything and go focus on her. So,
and I think I think now they're probably at an age where she has a better understanding of what type 1 diabetes is. He's had it for 6 or so years now. It's been a lot more a regular thing, where I imagine back at the beginning at 7 years old, not only are you and your husband going through the chaos of that transition, but then trying to explain that to not only one 7-year-old, but then his sister about what the implications of this diagnosis are.
Right.
It's hard. Yeah. It's heavy, and it's not something that you can easily grasp, I think, at that age either.
And we had always said we don't want to say, no, Ryan, you can't do this because of diabetes. We want to let him do anything within reason that we would normally do. And so I think having them at the same age developmentally and having them at the same age of interest of what they were doing, like that first summer, they had always taken swimming lessons in the summer, and he continued to do his swimming. And I was like, I don't want to say, yes, Sydney, you can go to swimming lessons, but no, Ryan, you can't, because it could be dangerous. We just had to monitor it.
Yeah.
And be careful. And the first summer, I wasn't as scared as I eventually got over time. I was kind of a little more clueless about what could go wrong and what risks there were. And then I got to the other extreme where I got too worried and too anxious and too nervous. And now I feel like I'm in the kind of right middle. But yeah, I think having them as a pair has been helpful to make sure everything's equitable.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting perspective too, because I didn't even consider the fact that, him being newly diagnosed as a parent, you're going to have that fear of letting him do certain activities, but that would also impact your child who doesn't have type 1 diabetes, and you don't want to have either of them be at a loss.
Right.
So I'd like that's not, it's not just the perspective of of, oh, is he getting too much attention? But hey, let's make sure everything is equal for the two of them. You know, we're not missing out on experiences as well. So I know we've talked a lot about like the struggles, but as a parent, as a T1D parent today, what gives you hope?
I think just seeing how much Ryan takes his type 1 diabetes in stride, and he has, you know, over the past couple years, come to me when, you know, maybe he has a bad low and I'm a little nervous, and he can tell. I try to keep my cool, but he's, you know, they can sense kids. They know when your parent's not right, or they're worried about something or stressed out. And he will come to me and say, Mom, I'm gonna be okay. Like,
Oh,
not every time.
yeah.
There have been times where he says, I know you're worried. You're right. I want you to stop worrying. And I'm like, oh, okay.
That is so mature for a kid his age. That's not the response I would picture, but it really does sound like you have two very wonderful kids with great heads on their shoulders. That
I think so. I hope it sticks. You never know.
Yeah.
Years of like, what's going to happen in high school?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, and there's always that unknown fear. But everything you've been telling me, I just like want to reinforce that I think everything you've said to me today sounds like he's got a really great head on his shoulders. And I think going into this transition, I think you can feel pretty confident that he knows what he's doing. It sounds like he knows what he's doing, and he cares about, you know, he cares about what it is to be type 1 diabetic. You hear so many the stories of where people, you know, have more struggles, or a lot of times I hear from people say, I just kind of, you know, stopped care. I just didn't care. I just didn't care to do the work. And
I know that may happen, that diabetes burnout may happen to him at some point in his life. But the fact that people have been talking about it, and I know that that's a phase that some people go through, helps me feel more prepared.
Yes.
If it does come to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think too, like, what a wonderful thing to have those constant glucose monitors now. And every time I talk to a parent too who has a child with type 1 diabetes, that's all I can think of is like what a game changer that is. And I wish my mom had that, and I'm so glad that parents today get to have that, because the amount of stress I think that would probably relieve from just like, rather than it being an unknown factor all the time unless you're checking. Because I know I was checked a lot as a kid manually, a lot of manual finger pokes.
I'm sure I would have done that if
you
didn't have one.
Where now you can, like, if you start feeling nervous, you have that device right on your phone at all times. And I'm sure you've been woken up in the middle of the night with a beep on many occasions. But having that, like, there is at least that reassurance that you're going to know. You'll know and be able to manage it. And even in those instances, like when you went to the planetarium and there was that hurdle, we were still able to figure out a way to make it still enjoyable and not let diabetes kind of rule the day.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Something we like to say around here too is that those of us who have type 1 diabetes, we have type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes doesn't have us. And I think that's such a powerful way to look at it, because that is, and even like for, you know, you as a parent, like, those of us who have type 1 diabetes are so much more than, I know we're focusing on it heavily today, but, you know, there's so many other things you've talked about with Ryan about how he's this very caring, you know, sensitive kid, and all these activities he enjoys doing, and he's way more than, you know, just
the
type 1 diabetic. Yeah,
for sure.
I kind of to flip topics here, but I do want to touch on this. You mentioned earlier about other authors who either they might not have diabetes themselves, but who write about type 1 diabetes, and I wanted to ask if there's any of the authors in particular that maybe you look up to or have gone to for advice, or if not that, do you have any recommendations for other books? I would love to hear those personally.
I pulled out a stack of books from my bookshelf, and these are some other T1D moms who I've met through Breakthrough T1D. This is a chapter book, Annie and Friends Adventures, D for Diabetes. Jean Belair wrote it, and about her daughter Annie, and it's about her diagnosis experience. So this is like a easy reader for kids who are in maybe first, second, third grade. Who could read this themselves. So that's really fun series.
Was that edited? I think I saw in there. Was that illustrated by Miss Diabetes or no?
No, this was illustrated by her Tom Belair, her brother.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then here's another one, Highs and Lows. It was written by Bonnie McCauley. Again, about a brother relationship and how the siblings kind of manage one being diagnosed with type 1 and one not.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm a kid lit author, so all of the books I like are for kids.
Of course, yeah.
This one is awesome. This is a young adult. It's called Accidental Demons, and it's written by Claire Edge, who has type 1 diabetes herself. And it's about, it's a fantasy, and the problem is the blood summons blood demons.
Oh.
Who has type 1 and have to trick themselves. There's all these witches and demons and things that come about that they have to deal with. So it's a really cool premise.
I was like, that's a really cool premise. That's one that I might have to check out. Yeah,
if you like to read, I think you would. I think it's young adult, but I think adults would like it too. And then the other one is another biography of Frederick Banting, Fred and Marjorie, which was one of the dogs in his lab that he had that was with him the longest. And it's about the discovery of insulin, but it's in a graphic novel format.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Oh.
And this one I think was published in Canada. So those are, and then I have one more that's historical fiction for adults. Breakthrough, Elizabeth Hughes, The Discovery of Insulin and the Making of a Medical Miracle. And this is historical fiction, and it focuses on Elizabeth Hughes, whose father was a famous, the daughter of America's most distinguished jurist and politician, Charles Evans Hughes, in 1919, and how they tried to get access to help for her, and how she was restricted to like a 300 calorie a day diet.
Gosh.
Before they had a cure. That's what they would do.
Yeah.
Not eat.
It's
to try to survive.
Which what a life. Oh.
Yeah. So this was a really good read too. So those are some of my
Thank you for sharing those. Yeah, I'm as I said in the beginning, like representation is so important, and being able to see folk with type 1 diabetes or book topics about type 1 diabetes that aren't just like, like boring education, you know what I mean? Like these like fun stories
about what is it and how is it, and tell me everything I need to know about the pancreas. It's their story.
Yeah, no, we have blood demons instead.
Yeah.
Like that one definitely, I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. That's a great way to like kind of describe it too. If there was one thing you could say to your past self who had just learned that your son was diagnosed with T1D, what would you say?
I would tell myself not to worry so deeply, and to let like the worry I experienced got really bad, and I'm someone who struggles with anxiety, and so it really kind of flared up my anxiety, and I've gone to therapy on and off for years. I'm a big believer in therapy.
Yes.
Mental health matters. I think everybody should talk about stuff like that.
Yes.
And I went back to a therapist and I was like, okay, my son now has type 1 diabetes and I'm worrying about him all the time and I'm crying so much. And it just like was over consuming me. And so I sought help and I kind of worked through things and talked through things. And, I remember in one session, the therapist saying, what is it that you worry about? I'm like, well, I worry about him going low. And she's like, what happens when he goes low? Well, he might pass out. And she's like, well, and what else are you worried about? And I had to admit, I worried that he might die. And that was a big, big fear. And then she gave me great advice. She's like, I want you to do some fact finding. I want you to find out how often these lows happen to people, how often they bounce back, how many people have lost their life to type 1. And you need to look at the numbers and you need to look at how in control Ryan is. And you have a great medical team and we have medicine and we have tools. And so she gave me I had to find the facts to get through the emotional part of it. And for your child, you want everything for them. You want the best for them. And it got very, very scary. And now I feel much more comfortable. Like I was saying earlier, I worried the right amount, not the healthy amount I was worrying about before. So that's what I would give advice to other people who are newly diagnosed, to really don't let fear get a hold of you. And if you're struggling, talk to someone, reach out for that help. For sure. Yeah.
I love that. Everything you just said there. I love that so much. Thanks for being vulnerable with us about that. It is that is such a real thing that I think a lot of us feel, especially our other type 1 diabetic, our parents to type 1 diabetics in chat, that I think that is a very real fear. And advocating for, going and getting that. I wish I could give you a hug right now. Oh my God, you are so sweet. But you are such an incredible, this past hour spending with you and everything I've looked up about you before our interview today, you are such an incredible mother. You are so strong. And I really admire you. Genuinely, you're doing an incredible job. You are really doing an incredible job. And I hope you know that and recognize that, because it is hard. It is so hard and it's so scary, but you are absolutely doing a phenomenal job. And I appreciate all the work you're doing for not only Ryan, but all of us out there with type 1 diabetes. And one last thing, talking about here too, how you do a lot, I think, to help support the T1D community. You're so involved. How can people help and support the type 1 the T1D community?
I think it's, mostly right now what I'm trying to do is build awareness of type 1 diabetes. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to schools later this week to do presentations on the book and read the book to kids and help them understand the symptoms and things like that. So spread the word. Let people know that there's resources out there, there's books out there, there's support, there's help, and be bold to talk about it.
Yes. Yeah. And I totally echo that, because as we said earlier, that knowing what symptoms are for type 1 diabetes, knowing how to support others, if you ever come across someone in your life who has type 1 diabetes, and just knowing kind of what that is so huge for us who live with it. And people who are undiagnosed too, just knowing, what are those signs, and those are literally just life-saving, things to know. And, I love that that's something you're going to a school to talk about and educate a bunch of children about, because, they might not otherwise hear about that. And they have, peers likely who have type 1 diabetes. Right. There's so many of us out there, and
Yeah.
Oh, you're amazing, Lisa. I'm so
Oh,
glad I got
thank
to talk to
you.
you today. Um,
Welcome.
we are ending this hour here with Lisa. I do encourage everyone to please go check out. Lisa has tons of children's books, but of course, our focus today was "It Belongs to the World." Frederick Banting and the Discovery of Insulin. If it really a great read, even as an adult. Like I loved reading this too. Please go check it out at your local library.
I am just happy to be able to talk about this. I'm grateful for Janina, Miss Diabetes, who did the great illustrations in this book. And definitely check her out. And she's Miss Diabetes online and does great comics about life with type 1 diabetes. And just thank you for being interested in my story. And, Frederick was doing things more for others than for himself. And I hope we can all do that.